would like for all of us to know, and you kind of briefly touched on it earlier, what's the difference between a yes and a no vote on this upcoming?
Right, so, and there's that little flyer that kind of summarizes it, but if the communities vote yes, there's certain things that are potential for us that if we vote no could be very problematic. So right now the state expects you to eliminate your deficit in 2 years. With the yes vote, Mike Flanagan has indicated that he will work with us to extend that repayment period. And as far as I know, he will be at the meeting on August 8th to say that himself to you, so that it won't just be me relaying that.
Well, you know, given that it's their underfunding and the games that they're playing and have been playing that have, for the most part, caused us to get in this situation. With 550 districts in the state, you know, and how many of us are in trouble, you can't really look at any single board and say that any single board is guilty of getting into the position that we're in right now. That being said, being as how they're the ones that control the purse strings that caused or helped to cause our financial problems right now. You know, we're sitting here looking at $1 million or $2 million in debt, and IPSI's, you know, 10 or 12 million, whatever it is, because the state in part put us there. I'd like to hear from them that they're, instead of just going to, you know, give us more time to repay it, I'd like them to look into what they can do to, you know, eliminate part of the debt that they themselves have caused us to be in, regardless of anything else.
So remember this, Mike Flanagan didn't do this. State board had no control over it. It's the legislature and the governor combined that did it, and it wasn't the current legislature that did it. It was a different group of legislators that did it. And if the state were to do that for us, because that was our first ask, in September we had the first meeting with Representative Rutledge, Representative Rogers, and Bill Rustin. Bill Rustin reminded us gently in that room that if we were to forgive or eliminate the debt because you consolidated, we'd be in the same boat with Detroit, who's been asking for forgiveness of their $300 million debt. And then if you take all 48 school districts that are deficit, and there are differing degrees of culpability. Some boards were absolutely derelict in their duty. Other boards, because of the convergence of other factors, found themselves crosswise, and you know, so you kind of have this continuum of levels of responsibility. But the impact is the same, and that is, if they do it for one, they're in a position of how do they, so they take everybody's foundation grant down to pay off the debt that was accumulated by the 48 districts. That's where I think we get the pushback. So if we can move in a different way and say, and no disagreement that if that $300 plus the $170 federal stimulus money, if that hadn't disappeared, Willow Run would be in a very different position. There's no denying that you had made the kinds of decisions that changed the trajectory. We put that up on the screen, and I called it like I saw it in that meeting, and someone said I was kind of brutal in my conversation comparing one district to the other. But at the end of the day, the reality is what it is. We can't change that. The other piece is the achievement data is equally poor for both districts. And so even if we fix the financial component, we have a more compelling challenge in front of us, and that is really addressing the achievement issue. And the only way we can have the revenue necessary to address the achievement issue is by coming together and being able to extend the repayment period, and then tapping into what we believe will be at least $2 million, but could be more, that the state put in the school aid fund this year as an incentive for consolidating districts. And there are a couple of other things they're working on. So that's what happens. And on the flip side, I was listening to the radio on the way in, and we had picketers in Detroit because the emergency manager imposed a 10% reduction on all the teachers in the Detroit public schools. And so they're picketing, which of course is their right to do. But the emergency manager can unilaterally do those things. There's no requirement for him to bargain. And so that's the other piece. If we don't move forward on a consolidation vote, both districts are in a position where they're likely to miss payroll at some point in the upcoming year. right on the bubble. Even getting the money, borrowing from the school aid revolving loan fund was a challenge for both districts. But we were able to get that approved at the very last minute in order to be able to proceed. But you miss a payroll, triggers a financial review. It's a pretty short process between that, start of that, and the appointment of an emergency manager. And so that's where, if the community says no, I don't know there's a whole lot you can do. If the community says yes, the people who control the levers of power in Lansing are interested in this being a successful model, because they don't want to run all the schools in the state.
They don't want to prove they can't.
Can I ask you, does each district have to approve
Yes.
each independently? So if IPSI said no and Willow Run said yes,
It would fail.
it would fail.
And more importantly, we as the board of Willow Run and the 7 from IPSI, we have to agree that we want to go forward. IPSI has to agree that we want to go forward. And then the public gets a choice.
Right.
So we could say yes, IPSI could say yes, and the public could still say no.
Yeah.
But
Right.
at this point in time, it probably boils down to the fact that it's, what the public wants is probably what's most important here.
Right, I would agree. I think they need to be able to weigh in on this question to determine the fate of public education.
And there was a question brought up, it's funny you say that, we was talking this morning, and if you look at it that way, it's really not fair for us to not let the community decide it. I mean, they are the people that voted us in, and how we have the audacity or to say no and not even give the community their fair share.
Right.
So
It's interesting, the choice of the word incentive. If you look at the dictionary definition of incentive, dictionary definition of a bribe, they're not a whole lot different.
anything else with Mr. Menzel?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menzel. Enjoy
Thank
the
you.
rest of your night.
You too, I appreciate your time and
Yep.
good evening.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, put a half an hour left and you're out.
Bingo. I'll give you a call on my way out.
Thanks.
What somebody thank you to?
Thanks for coming. Fast. He's just trying to get out of here because he's been at us all day long. So wait.
Second consideration of policy 1030, membership.
Mr. President, I move that the Willow Run Board of Education open for second consideration of board policy 1030, membership.
Support.
It has been moved and supported that the Willow Run Board of Education open for second consideration of board policy 1030, membership. Discussion.
Yes, under rationale, why do we want to move to 6 years? I know we've discussed this, but under rationale, I don't see why we're doing this.
Well, actually, we've already voted to move
Yes.
to that. What
I
we're
know.
doing right
What
now
we're
is
doing is
just
just
simply
changing the
correcting
policy.
policy to reflect
Right,
that.
I know, but I mean,
The
I
policy
didn't
has
see-
to reflect the resolution that we passed.
right, but I didn't see it on the last one either, so I was just there.
What next one?
On
The first consideration.
right,
I think when we talked about it when we did it, it was also a financial to move. And if we hold it in opposite years, then we would have to, I think it would be a lot more expensive, or we'd have to fund it. If we do it in 6 years, financially, it'll save us.
Well, that, and the state has said that we have to do it in even
Even
November.
November.
And then the choice becomes whether we do it
4 years, 6 years.
with 4 board members 1 year, 3 the next, or by going with 6 years, you could do 2-2-2 or 2-2-2-3, and you end up with a more contiguous board for a longer period of time. And if the consolidation occurs, this is all moved anyways.
Yes.
Adoption of policy 1030, membership.
Mr. President, I move that the Willow Run Board of Education adopt board policy 1030, membership.
Support.
It has been moved and supported that the Willow Run Board of Education adopt board policy 1030, membership. Roll call.
Trustee Myers.
Aye.
Trustee Stewart.
Aye.
Trustee Meadows.
nay.
Trustee Thomas.
Aye.
I vote aye, Mr. President.
Aye. Motion carries. Second consideration of policy 36